Hi, this is Mark Soden. I'm here for Wonder Valley Experimental 15, and I'm here with Jon Christopher of UFOverdriver.
My name is Jon Christopher. My music project is called UFOverdriver, and I am in the beautiful village of Joshua Tree, California, out here in the high desert of California.
What led you to experiment with sound?
Oh my gosh. Well, I've always played around with sound. That's from being a little kid using my parents' cassette recorder to record things and try and make little mixes of stuff. I liked sound effects records when I was a kid. But what really, the seminal moment, I would say, that like switched me over from like being passive about it to like that I'm going to do something about this would be listening to Pink Floyd The Wall when I was 15 years old. Just laying in my bed with the headphones on and all of those little bits between songs, those captured my imagination. And I remember thinking, I want to do something that sounds like this.
In that vein, do you have a piece of gear that you are using that you will find inspiring and you would like to tell us about?
Well, my setup is very standard. My home studio involves a MIDI keyboard, an M Audio MIDI keyboard. I just replaced the one that I had for 13 years. My project's been going on for 13 years, and my first keyboard died, and I just replaced it. I use Cakewalk as my DAW, and I get a lot of free sounds from freesound.org. But I would say the piece of equipment that I consider most crucial to my project is my imagination. And I use my imagination to go beyond whatever I can possibly conceive a song would be like when I go into creating a new composition. And I just allow myself. The funny thing is, in my imagination, UFOverdriver is like a giant flying saucer that hovers over the populace and picks up on subconscious vibrations and beams them back down to the populace. So flying in that form of imagination, that causes me to go outside of any preconceived areas I might have before I start.
What is the experimental scene like in your area?
I would say Joshua Tree is very healthy. Um, we're 30 miles from Wonder Valley, where Wonder Valley Experimental takes place every year. We go out to that every year. Um, there are a lot of musicians in the area here. Even our local radio station Z1077 on Sunday has a local radio show hosted by Pat Kearns, and Pat plays. Just yesterday, he played one of my sound collages on his radio show. So it's very healthy. It's encouraged out here.
So, how would you approach improvising in an experimental context?
Everything UFOverdriver does is experimental. I'm not a trained musician at all, and I for years I considered myself far from being anything close to a musician. I'm learning. So I this year I decided to call myself a musician for the first time. So everything I do is experimental. I sit down at my DAW. I lay down a drum track, a very simple drum track. I lay down a very simple bass line, and then I go into it and I just hit a few notes on my keyboard until a few sound good. I loop those, and everything that I do is based on creating small loops of music and stitching them together. I am a collage artist, so I approach music as a collage project.
How did you come up with the name UFOverdriver?
Well, 13 years ago, I decided I was going to start making sound collages. It was an idea that had run around my head for, a dozen, 15 years or so, that I wanted to do this. And when I started making sound collages, I needed a band name. I sat there in my sketchbook and I wrote down name after name after name, and nothing seemed to fit until I put together the words ultra frequency and then ultra frequency overdriver. And I was like, but that's a long name. And so, because my first sound collage was UFO based, it was called the UFO Takeover Mix, Area 5150, UFO Takeover Mix. And because it was UFO based, I decided to shorten it to UFOverdriver, a name which has confused people ever since.
As well it should. So,
Hey,
they
we're
remember it.
experimental musicians, right?
Well, it's an experimental name for experimental music. It works for
Right,
me.
exactly.
So, is there anything else you'd like to add, or anything you'd like to say about the music?
I would like to encourage people to go to the UFOverdriver.com website and read the UF Overdriver story. I just posted this just recently, and it tells the whole story of how UF Overdriver came together and what I aim to do with my project, and how I connect, and how this is a project where I am investigating using consciousness as an art form. And by reading my UF Overdriver story, I explain that in detail.
That is spectacular. I'm on my way now. All right. Well,
Thank you. I
thank you.
appreciate that.
Thank you, John.
Thank you, Mark.
And have a great afternoon. And this is Mark Soden signing off for Wonder Valley Experimental number 15, the virtual edition.